Hey guys, it's Don here. I am out in the garage, back in Salt Lake. And lest you think that I'm going to turn my attention back to the Jeep right this minute, well, unfortunately, I'm not. I've got one more, I'll call it a kind of time-sensitive project to do for the boat. So let me explain and I'll show you what we're doing here. Okay guys, well here's what I've got. I've got my little temporary table set up here in the garage, and I have before me two of the three pieces that I'm calling the headboard out of the boat. I don't know if that's really what you call it, but whatever, it doesn't matter. This is the port side, this was the starboard side right above the helm. So on this port side, we just had the speakers, and then we had the clock that was just surface mounted, and we had the barometer that was just surface mounted. So all this piece needs is a new piece cut to size, our new holes cut for our speaker, and we're good to go. However, let me flip this over and I'm going to show you the back end of these. Maybe flip this over. So these are, all this equipment is ADS equipment. So I think that company was called Analog and Digital Systems, or Analog to Digital or something, but the speakers are all that, the amps are all that stuff. There's one of these on each one of these, and what this is I'm calling it a crossover unit. I don't know if that's really what it's called, but it's got basically, you run the speaker wire in here, and then you get two separate outputs, one to your tweeter, one to your mid-range speaker. So these will stay in the mix, and these actually have holes through it. So I plan on mounting this to the back of the board, to my new board, after I get everything hooked up here. Now I will cut the proper sizes for these speakers. These speakers were cut in with a jigsaw, so those aren't very round holes. And as I get started here, I do have to kind of figure out how to get these covers off so I can get the speakers screws out that are holding them in there. I don't know how I'm going to do that yet, but I'll figure it out. I was thinking they may turn, quarter of a turn or something. So let me show you what I have purchased to try to redo these. So I went down to the local Lowe's and I found some select pine board here. It's 1 inch by 10 inch, 4 feet long. So just about right. I mean, you know, we'll cut a chunk of that off. It's about the proper thickness or width. The only issue I have, it is slightly thicker than the existing board. So that's going to be a little bit of a concern, because when these boards go up against the roof of the cabin there are some pieces of trim that they have to fit behind. Worst case, I mean, ideally what would be good is if I knew somebody with a plane, I could cut these to length, go plane them down to the exact thickness of this. Worst case, if I can't figure that out because I don't know anyone with a plane, is on the back side of this board, I could go around the perimeter and just kind of sand it down closer to that actual thickness. I don't have to do the whole entire back, because when this goes up against that headboard, most of the center part is just wide open. The only place it has to fit is around the perimeter, which is kind of a boxed in frame there. So I think that'll be okay. I may take my little table with me when I go back up there. I will certainly take my jigsaw, because you can see over the helm here, we had the two holes cut in for the old radios. Over there in the garage is the front one, or the center piece that had the old head unit and the CD changer and all that stuff. And all we're going to wind up cutting into that one is the new head unit. Now, I did not bring that head unit back with me, so I planned on doing that cutting up there. So I will cut these, give them the treatment I can here, take them up and install them on the boat up there and kind of fit them and trim the fit. You know, so I'll take a file and some sandpaper and stuff like that to get them, because they kind of, the center is one angle, and then it seems like the two angles are slightly towards the back of the boat. So the center of the two boards may have to be trimmed slightly to fit together. Nice. So it'll take a little finessing up there. What I will probably do is not stain these here in Utah. I'll stain them up on the boat. I'm pretty sure I saw stain on the boat, and if not, good Lord, that'll be the only thing I don't have on there. I'm sure I can go find some at the local Home Depot there. I found that, and a Lowe's, so I know where those are. So yeah, step one, we're gonna figure out how to get these covers off, figure out what size hole I need to drill. I'm sure I'm not gonna have the right size hole saw for this, so I'm gonna have to go buy a hole saw, one big one. I probably have one to fit these tweeters. But, and then of course I'll do my OCD routine. I'll make sure that, you know, the center of the hole is perfectly measured on both boards so that my speakers are exactly in the right space. And on the back side, like I said, that little box unit will be screwed up. The cables will be all nicely tied off. The OCD part of me will be a happy boy. So first thing I'm gonna do is see about getting these covers off. Then I'll see about starting to figure out cutting these to length, identifying them, because these two were not exactly the same length. If I put them next to each other, port side, starboard side, they're about an inch from each other. And that might even be something I might do more of this up there than I'm mentioning right now, because it might be, I'm not sure why they would have been different lengths. Now that I'm thinking about the way that was laid out, I do think that headboard section was in like 3 different angles, but now I'm questioning myself. And if everything's identical, then, you know me, I'm gonna wanna make these the exact same length and then do the one in the center to fit. So we'll see about that. So anyway, let's get these covers off. Let's get these speakers out, figure out what size hole we need to do. Start giving this our consideration for that. Okay, so having no idea, literally no idea, how to take these speakers out of this board, this was really an adventure. So what I thought was that the black ring here that you're seeing me try to twist, I thought maybe it would press over the frame of the speaker and turn like a quarter turn. I've seen some that do that and kind of lock into place that way. So I kept trying to turn it and it wouldn't turn. So I then took a screwdriver and got behind it and tried to pry it a little bit to see if it would just pop off, and no dice. So I decided that the little crossover box had to go so I could quit kind of messing around with that thing. So as per usual, I grabbed the phone and took a couple of quick pictures of how the cabling was. Not that the cabling's all that sophisticated here. There's just 2 cables, but one of them kind of has your marker on it, like it's either the ground or the not ground part of wire, and I just want to make sure I knew which side of the speaker that was hooked to. So I went ahead and took a picture of that. Now, the speaker itself, on that mid-range speaker, there's just spades there. You could pull the wires off. The little tweeter there had the connectors were clamped to the wire, so that one I had to just cut those. But that helped to get the wires out of the way a little bit. And then I started thinking, okay, well, maybe this grill is just pressed in there. So I got a little tiny straight screwdriver and was able to kind of stick it down between the grill and that ring. And sure enough, I was starting to get some movement there. So I was able to pull that front grill off the main speaker here. The little tweeter, on the other hand, had these 2, what were obviously screws, sticking through this plastic ring. And what I thought when I'm looking at it is I thought, well, maybe those just press on. Maybe that thing just presses on and just kind of goes down the screw, and then, you know, it's a one-shot deal. But no, it turns out that those screws were actually screwed through the thing from the front side. So once we get this all apart, we'll be able to see there was a way to do this, but I had no idea how to do it. So you can see me fumbling and stumbling here trying to figure this out.
but eventually I got it.
Okay, I'm showing you the inside of the plastic piece that had the 2 screws through it. So you saw what I had to do is I hooked my vice grips on, kind of back these screws out backwards so I could get one of these out and see what I have. So the speaker itself has this little stepped area on the side of it here, and that is meant to go in here. Let me get this with the screws out of there. And you can kind of see inside of there the area that it goes in and clips into, and then down on the bottom you can see those 2 little tab things. Those kind of looks like, well, I thought they were kind of clipping into a little divot on the back here. I don't really think they are, but yeah, getting that first one out was kind of a nightmare. So I do now know though that that's what's going on. I did break a little piece of this off, but not, I thought at first this might just have pressed onto these screws, but nope, it was screwed through them. So I backed those out. So I will be able to put this back together easier than I took it apart. But yeah, that was a little bit of struggle. So at least now I know this will be the size we measure to get our hole saw size sorted out. And if I show you here, my existing hole, maybe that's a good view. Shows you how out of round that hole is. That one they did with a hole saw, but this one they did most assuredly not do with a hole saw. So I got my other one out. You saw me get that, came out in kind of 2 pieces. So this main part of the speaker was screwed in, and then this ring goes around it to, you know, basically go kind of like that, and then the grill just presses in there. So this one was easy to get out. This little guy, I've been messing around with that thing for 20, 30 minutes, I'll bet, trying to get that out of there. I mean, maybe not that long, but yeah, that was not cool.
Okay, so you recall I said that my existing boards were thinner in thickness than the new boards. And so what I was hoping to be able to do was kind of find a way to plane those down, the new boards, down to that rough thickness of the old boards if I could. And I went down to the local Home Depot here and went to their tool rental department. And they actually had a door plane, is what the guy called it. So it was a little hand planing unit that cuts about a 3-inch swath at a time. And I said, well, let me give that a try. I thought, you know, worst case, remember I said I maybe would only do the perimeter of the boards where they had to kind of screw to the old frame. But this thing looked to me like it was going to do the job, assuming it was, you know, going to cut well and be easy to control and whatnot. So I fired it up, and what I did is I took a piece of the wood and I kind of scoped it out, looked at which side I wanted to be the working side, the back side, and which side of the board I wanted to be my presentation side, my front side, if you will. And so I laid down some kind of padding on my little temporary bench here, and put the good side, or the presentation side, down, and then started working on what we're going to call the back side of this thing. And you know what? It worked pretty darn well. So at the depth that I was cutting as I was making a pass here, it was taking me about, I think, 4 passes across the board to get it down to that final working thickness that I wanted to have. So yeah, that was not too bad at all. And all I wound up with was a very, very dusty garage and a great big pile of shavings. Okay, all in all, the process of laying out where the holes need to go, the centers of the holes, pretty straightforward. I roughly copied what was there before. They weren't exactly lined up with each other on the two boards, but I got them out, got them marked out, grabbed my hole saws and opened them up. So I have a 4¼ inch one and an 1 7/8. And the 4¼ or 4½, whatever it is a tiny bit smaller than I would have wanted, but the 1 7/8 one is perfect. So I don't know how often you've drilled with the hole saw, but you've got your pilot bit in the center, and if you're not careful as you're drilling that thing in, when the pilot bit breaks through the back of your surface, there's a tendency for it to kind of draw down in there quickly and pull the rest of the bit in behind it as it, before it gets the hole completely rounded out, which then makes your hole saw bit snag the wood unexpectedly. So then as the drill is trying to get yanked out of your hands, your natural tendency is to grip it tighter, which makes you pull the trigger full blast, and next thing you know, your board's spinning around and knocking the camera almost off the tripod, and all kinds of chaos ensues. All right, well, I wound up kind of dinging up the end of the board when that thing was flipping all around, so I swapped ends in what was going to be my kind of waste end before is now my good end, so no worries there. And I decided, well, I'm going to start this one with the big hole saw and see what we do. Now this time I was ready for it, and but the one thing you can't do is kind of back your bit out, because then you just unscrew the hole saw apart from the pilot bit. But again, I had my game on for this one. I was ready. I was making sure I was holding that drill nice and steady, easing it in there, not letting it pull down and surprise me. This hole went much better, as did all the rest of them, now that I have my guard up. Okay, so as I mentioned, that 1 7/8 hole is perfect for the little tweeter there, but the mid-range speaker, the 4-inch one, the hole saw that I had, I would have wanted maybe a 1/4 inch more. Didn't quite need exactly that, but the back surface of that speaker is tapered just a little bit. So after I got my hole drilled, the speaker wouldn't go completely down in there and lay flush against the back surface. So what I wound up doing was I just took the Dremel and put a little sanding bit on it and just kind of hand tapered the inside of that hole a little bit, test fitted a couple of times, made sure that everything was going to lay down in there nice and neat. That just took me a few minutes and got it all sorted out, ready to go, no worries. So these boards are effectively done at this point, ready to go, kind of be bundled up together. I'll put the speakers just in a box with all the components of those and prep this all for going in the back of the truck back up to Seattle, where, like I said, I'll fit them finally. I'll make sure that, again, my intent is to have both the port and starboard sides be identical lengths. They are angled slightly, ever so slightly on that end. So when it's up against a headboard, it's tilted just a little bit. It's not square up and down from the roof of the cabin. So obviously your angle, there's a bit of an angle there. It's confusing. I'm not explaining it well, but you'll see it when I get up there. the end in the picture right here where my hand, where the Dremel is, that end's going to be cut to a little bit of an angle, and then the other end will be straight up and down. So, yep, ready to go in the truck, move on to other things. I did go to a hobby store and picked up just some foam board like you'd use to put up your science fair exhibit, and some black canvas, or I think it's canvas, to wrap around that. So I've got what I need to fill in my big hole where we put the WeBoost in. And a couple other little things like that. But I think for the most part, it's getting near the end of the week here. So it's about time to start thinking about loading stuff back up and heading to the North Country again. So I'll probably go ahead and wrap this up for now, and we'll catch up once we get up in saddle and we start kind of putting all this stuff back in place.